This is the editor who won an Oscar for Best Editing for Dunkirk, which is a film that is told in a non-linear timeline. What are the techniques that this editor, Lee Smith, put into play? And how much creative control did he have? Was the script already a non-linear story? Did Nolan already have that planned out? Or did he bring that to the table? Let's find out.
The land, air and sea concept was built into the script, but of course when you're in post-production and editing, where those points changed and converged and where you allowed the audience in on the multiple timeline gags were all controllable. So we spent a lot of time perfecting where we moved from land to air to sea and back again. Probably in the first construction it was quite confusing because a lot of times you went back and you'd been away from one of the components for too long a period, so you'd be sort of thinking, I'm not sure where I am or what's happening.
So Nolan had already scripted out for this to be a story that was told through non-linear editing. However, it was up to Lee Smith to decide on a scene-to-scene basis how often they were switching back and forth. Nolan already knew which scenes he was going to shoot and had a general idea of how they would be cut together, but he had the creative control of how exactly to execute on that. And we learn an important tip here that I think can be applied to any kind of story, non-linear or not, which is the fact that when you're dealing with 2 or 3 subplots, is that you have to be careful how long you've left that subplot. And this is something that can apply to if you're editing a documentary or a YouTube video. If you've got multiple different plots ongoing, you need to know this pacing for, the audience will forget if you've left it for too long. So you've got to get back to it in a time that is still satisfying and maybe leave it on a cliffhanger and come back to it after we've touched on our other subplots. So you're kind of making a sandwich. It's like, all right, we've got the A plot, then we have a scene with the B plot. We want to get back to that A plot pretty soon or else we're going to forget what just happened over here.
When the little ships showed up with Kenneth Branagh, that was a really critical moment because if we moved it slightly earlier or later in the timeline, you didn't get the emotional rush that you did when it was in its exact position. And we tested that numerous times because we were trying to pull it forward and trying to push it back, and it just found its natural place. That was a big challenge.
Which is this scene right here. He looks on the horizon, and what's on the horizon? Hey, look. Music is very tense. Home. Ah, okay. The music is now happy, and it's a good plot point here. Big emotional release. However, this is not the ending of the movie. This is not the resolve for our main character. If we moved this up, it would have ruined tension that was previously being built before it. This comes at the 75% mark, about 75 to 80% mark of the movie. I screenshotted it here on, I was watching it on Amazon Prime, and you can see it comes in at 1 hour, 12 minutes with 33 minutes remaining. So one last moment of hope before we have to enter into like the very last moment of suspense and like the very last battle. And we're about to have one more climactic moment after this. So what comes before this scene? Well, we've got this pilot had just been struggling under the water, and he finally gets out. So that's a little bit of resolution here, and he's picked up, he's saved by the boy in the boat. What is going on with our other character? Tom Hardy here, he is struggling to take down the enemy plane, which we inevitably are kind of on the edge of our seat wondering, when is that plane going to catch up here? We see all these bodies swimming in the water and the oil, that ship is sinking. We know that this is a little bit ahead in time. Is our main character getting caught up in that? We don't know. We're left on the edge of our seat with that. So that is a piece of tension that's left unresolved. Meanwhile, let's see what's happening with our main character, the A plot, which is the young man here trying to get off of the beach and get back home. Well, he is stuck with these boys in the boat, and the water is rising. He's about to drown. They're pointing guns at each other. There's all this tension. With all of that, we get to this moment, then the emotional release. Now, once again, this is not the resolution, so we still know that our main character is in some sort of danger. We know that Tom Hardy is still fighting, and he hasn't completed his mission, which is to shoot down that enemy plane. But that makes it this perfect moment of what it's supposed to be in the story. That 75% mark, that like last, if it's two boxers fighting, it's like if Rocky gets in, a good punch, but the guy is still standing, the enemy is still standing. So let's look here. Here's the scene that comes after the ships on the horizon. We're now in the point of view of our main character, and we realize he is one of those men swimming in the oil. And remember, we left it unresolved with Tom Hardy in the cockpit of the plane, whether or not he shoots down the enemy plane. So the enemy plane is still circling. Now we know that our main character, who we've been pulling for through this whole journey to get out, we know that he is in a very dangerous situation. And then boom, everything breaks out into flames. Of course, one of these soldiers gets saved at the last minute, and that's our main character, which starts to lead to the real resolution of the story. So now that we know where this scene is positioned, that Lee Smith is talking about here, that was so crucial, where they screened it for audiences, and if they didn't put it in the right spot, it could derail the whole story. Once again, this makes me realize that he has an understanding for storytelling, and that's what we should all, as editors, just seek to be storytellers. Whether or not it's this interesting concept of nonlinear editing, the nonlinear editing just served as an extra device to add more suspense in this story. I certainly think it adds to the story. I don't think it's a gimmick. Ultimately, Lee Smith understood storytelling principles that work outside of the nonlinear editing style. It works in any form of storytelling. And so he knew instinctually, and through presenting the film to test audiences, that this moment of false hope, essentially, or the calm before the storm, this little sense of resolution before the final climactic battle, before the big resolution, he knew that it had to belong exactly in that place. To move it before would have been moving it before all of these tense moments that I was showing you here, where our main character is stuck in this boat, where this guy's getting stuck down in the water, and the young man on the boat is having a tense time trying to get him out. Him and his father, he's trying to convince his father to turn around. Meanwhile, we've got Tom Hardy up in the plane, and he's trying to shoot down the enemy plane. All these elements of suspense are in motion, and if you had the resolution come before that, it might make those moments feel like there's less weight, because we know that all of the rescue ships made it to the shore safely. However, when it comes in the place that it comes, we can have that resolution, but immediately dive right back into the final tension, which is that now we realize our main character is in this oil blast radius, and he's swimming in the oil. And it's this final moment of, will he make it to the rescue boat in time? Now, we also needed to have that resolution of all the boats arriving, because we needed to know that now that rescue boat is an option for our main character. Because the whole suspense of this last scene is, will our main character make it to the rescue boat, get through the oil before something ignites it and before he burns alive? So these are all of the factors in play that our boy Lee Smith here is thinking about when he's editing this movie and working with these scenes. Yes, Christopher Nolan scripted and planned that this movie would have non-linear storytelling, but he had to come to bring his storytelling abilities to the table. He had to be able to analyze and go, okay, what in this script, who are the main characters? What are the three main subplots? Why do these subplots matter to the main character trying to get from the beach onto a ship back home across, you know, the channel. He had to understand the goal of the main character, because if you don't understand the goal of the main character, then you can't set up these super tense suspense moments. The only reason it is suspense, we're wondering if our main character is going to make it out alive, and we know what his goal is, what he's trying to make it to. He's a very active protagonist. So you need to understand all these things, and that's what Lee Smith did. That's what took home the Oscar for Dunkirk, and you can take home an Oscar too. So let's keep on nerding about storytelling and editing. Hit me up in the comments with anything you want to talk about editing. I'll talk with you all day, all night. Have a happy day, my friend.